what is the one tip as a mediator that you would give trial lawyers going into a negotiation or mediation from everything you've seen?
Um, I've kind of harped on this point for a while. I write about this. I do podcasts about this. I think the single most important thing is having the mindset of an intent to settle. Going into mediation doesn't mean that you're going to ultimately settle, right? But you have the intent, you have the drive, you have the preparation. I think that is the most important thing because that's a mind shift. You're not going there to litigate. You're not going there to discover. You're not going there to destroy the other side. You're not going there to play games, but you're going there to do legitimate business to try to settle. That requires different preparation, right? So you have to get all your ducks in the order. You have to know what the other side needs in order to settle. And then what? Give it to them in advance. These are kind of things that you already do. But I think that is the best thing because it's a mind shift. I mean, I was a trial lawyer and I see a lot of times mistakes that happen at mediation where people continue in the trial lawyer mode at mediation. And those are two different venues. You don't win a mediation, right? You don't. That's an oxymoron. You go in there, you both can win, but not one party. So you have to make it where both sides get something that they need and they have a reason to settle. So information sharing, giving them what they need all in advance so they can get it done. I think that's the single most important because all the other tips follow from that. When
You
you
know,
think
one
about
one thing, Patrick, and maybe you agree with me. Maybe some trial lawyers will disagree, but I believe that there should be two mediations required in every case, not one. Because I think oftentimes, the first mediation is an introduction. And like you said, it gets the parties into that mindset. Stop the warring, the advocacy, and focus on a resolution. And I think sometimes that can be done early on in the case, right? To save costs for each side, try to get a quick resolution, which is in the best interest of the client. But I'd love to see a mediation be required right before a trial as well. Because I just think that, on the back end, when the parties are forced to come together and focus on that settlement mindset, magic happens. So I always try, if we don't settle it the first time, try it a second time. Yeah, there's costs, but it's a lot less than litigating for another year. So do whatever it takes to get the case resolved. And then I go to trial knowing that I did everything I possibly could to avoid this for the client. And now I feel like I have nothing to lose, right? Because if you force me to go do this, now I can explain to the client, we've bent over backwards. We've tried to settle and they've refused. And now we have to go to the last resort. And that's when the gloves come off and you get into trial warrior mode and the lion and all that good stuff.
I would agree, but I might have a slight modification to your idea. That would be to do it earlier. So have an earlier mediation, not at the very start. You need to have some information, but at the end of the day, how much information do you actually really need? Do you need everything to a certainty to settle? No, you're not even gonna get that until you have a trial, right? So try to do it early, but prepare early, and then maybe have another one after, down the road. But don't wait to the eve of trial because at that point, everybody's locked in.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of money. They've hired all their experts. They have everybody ready to go. As we all know, preparing for trial takes a lot of time. At that point, they're like, we might as well go, right? So I would say do it a little earlier. So your idea is great. Just move the timeline earlier.
And like, I don't mean to take more time, but especially in the personal injury context, the mediation triggers all this internal discussions by the insurance company that doesn't happen until there's a mediation. So it really forces the insurance company, 30 days before mediation, they're doing the caucusing and the higher execs are looking at the file. So like you said, I think the earlier that happens and the cases are on the radar, the better chance you have of settling. Because I think part of the issues we run up to against some plaintiffs' lawyers is there's so many cases that they're focused on putting out the fire they're dealing with that week, as opposed to cases that are set for trial in 15 months. So if you have an earlier mediation, then you get on their radar earlier and you start that mindset and can hopefully settle it quicker for the client.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Meaningful Mediation Podcast. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Additional episodes can be found on YouTube and your favorite podcast channels. Until next time, less dispute, more resolution.